We had the missionaries and the patrons, the robber patrons, like for about 50 years. And the Yawanawá spirituality culture was almost lost. There was only like about 200 people in the 80s. And because of malaria and other diseases, actually Tashka when he was a child, he got sick of like 5 things. And the missionaries actually saved him because the only way to get to the community was by a helicopter that they had. And his Tashka's dad was still a slave. Basically, Yawanawá were slaves of the robber tappers, and no rights of the land. And anyway, so in the 80s, that's when there was a whole movement of getting back the rights of the territory. And we have some young Yawanawá that learned about that, that left the community, Tashka's brother, elder brother. And they went back, and it's a long story, but basically expelled the missionaries, expelled the robber tappers. And the first thing that was done was to secure the territory. But then the Yawanawá were totally lost because everybody was lost because everything was dependent on the missionaries. You know, they were the ones that brought medicine, food, you know, everything. And also the culture was almost, spirituality was almost exterminated because the missionaries learned the language, Yawanawá language, and they always told our shamans, elders, that the Yawanawá spirituality was evil, you know, and they started to teach the Bible. They even translate the Bible in Yawanawá. And the women, when we started working with everybody in the community, the Yawanawá women didn't want to be Yawanawá. They wanted to color their hair in blonde hair. Everybody wanted to leave the community. But anyway, so the first step was to secure the territory, then to organize ourselves in an organization. And then what we did, when Tashka was explaining a little bit, like the first thing we did a big meeting, assembly of all the Yawanawá children. We called the elders. Tashka's dad was, fortunately, they still had the knowledge in their memory, you know, because in Brazil, indigenous people were just contacted some 100 years ago or something like that. So we called the elders and say, well, guide us now what we do, how we were in the past, how we are now in this situation, and how we want to be in the future. And they said, well, we need now to strengthen our identity. So what we did first, that's when we organized the first week of Yawanawá celebration, where we all came together, all the women, the men and children, and we just wanted to express our cultural manifestations that nobody knew, because the only ones that knew how it was the traditional dress, how were the paintings, were the elders. And it was in their memory. But so they are the ones that say, this is the women's painting, this is how we should dress. In the Yawanawá women's tradition, you don't wear anything here. So, but the women felt embarrassed because the missionaries always say, this is of evil. But then everybody took off the clothes and put the thing, and we all painted, and it was a beautiful week of dance and celebration. And Tuikuru, Tashka's dad, he cried. He cried when he saw all the people dressed and painted and dancing and in Yawanawá songs, because there were some songs that were not sung like for 75 years. And he cried, and he said, oh my God, now I can die happy because I see my people like this. You know, I thought I was going to see them like that only in my dreams.